Look, one of my favorite ways to catch a bass, without a doubt, is with a flipping stick in my hand. And down here in South Florida, I mean, as you can see, we got some thick, heavy cover. And I've always believed that the biggest fish in the lake love to be in, around, under, near heavy cover. So I'm gonna go through my flipping setup, specifically my punching setup for down here in South Florida, but it really works anywhere from here on Lake Okeechobee all the way up to Lake Champlain. A variation of this setup can help you put the odds in your favor to move that big fish and get him out and get him in your boat. It's all about being efficient, and efficiency is key when it comes to flipping and punching. So we're gonna go through my setup. As you can see, I've got an Okeechobee Special. This is the biggest rod in my series. I wouldn't say it's really stiff, but it's powerful enough to move a 10-pounder out of a reed head like that, or some buggy whips, and get him in the boat. I don't recommend a super high-speed reel. I know a lot of guys like to get that bait in quick, but you start going up there to those 8.2 to 1s or 9 something to 1s, and you lose power. But then again, I don't want a real slow reel where I'm working myself to death all day. So this is a 7.2 to 1 reel. I like 65-pound braid is what this is. This is the new Suffix 131 braided line. It's super smooth, it's 13 strands, so I think all of that is key. But right here it is. I got a beaver style bait, black and blue. This water's really dark. If you prefer green pumpkin or a clear color, I think that's strictly based on conditions. 4/0 heavy duty VMC hook, 1.5 ounce arc tungsten, and a bobber stopper. That's it. Those are the pieces. And we're going to put them together. We're going to get this thing rigged up. And every piece to this puzzle here is important. I don't think the hook is the most important piece, or your rod. I think all of these pieces have to be matched to your fishing style. Your hook set is, you know, if you like to set the hook hard, you're going to need a more limbered rod, because there's no stretch in braided line. And if you set the hook very weak, you're going to need a stiffer rod. So this rod is balanced for the way I like to fish. It's strictly like from a 1 ounce weight to a 2 to 2.5 ounce weight rod, and it's strictly a braided line rod. I would never put fluorocarbon on this rod because I would probably break it a lot. So I got my line rigged through there, got my reel on my rod. We're gonna thread us a bobber stopper on here. I highly recommend you get in the habit of doing this after a while, but I can't tell you how many times I've tied my snell knot on my hook and put my weight on there and forgot the bobber stopper. So bobber stopper always comes first. And the weight that you use is strictly based on the cover you're fishing. Obviously, if it's not that thick, you want to use a lighter weight. For down here, I think 1.5 ounces is a great starting point. I don't like to go to a 2 ounce weight, because the bigger the weight, the lower your percentage goes on bite to catch ratio. So 1.5 ounces, I have a really good hookup percentage. The only time, me personally, that I go to a 2 ounce weight is when we get a big cold front and we get some 30 and 40 mile-an-hour winds, and it creates that bow on my line, and then I'm not very efficient. So you're forced to go to a bigger weight. But 1.5 ounces, I can get it to go through pretty much anything under these conditions. You can see we got calm, sunny today. But that's how I choose my weight selection. So the next is the straight shank hook. You can see it's a straight shank flipping hook. It's just your standard thing. I recommend one with a welded eye and a keeper here to hold your bait up. And I think this hook design is perfectly suited to for a snell knot. So I'm gonna show you guys the Randall Tharp snell knot. It's very simple. The way I do it, it was a little challenging to learn at first, but I've taught it enough now. It's pretty quick and easy. So I take my line and I come down through the top and I make a loop around the hook shank. And I go back down the same way through the top. I taught this to a few guys, and they had some trouble hooking up. And they ran the line through the bottom, and what that does is it creates a cam action the wrong way. So instead of helping you, it actually hurts you. So I've got the two lines. I've got the line going to my rod. I've got the two lines I've ran through the top eye. So I take my right hand and I pinch those lines. So you can see what I got. I got the tag end And then I've got these two lines which created a loop around this lure. So then all I do is take this top line and I wrap. And as I'm wrapping, I'm gonna do a half a turn. And then see, I'm taking the top line and wrapping again. And once I get started, I can do this really quick. So I'm gonna do these last few turns for you guys at full speed. And I do that 7 to 8 turns. And what I do is I fill that section up on the hook shank between the hook eye and your bait keeper. And then all you do to cinch this knot down is take this line that's going to your rod and pull it slowly. And you can see that loop tightening up. And that is it. It's as simple as that. It's as quick as that. And the only other thing that you need to do to finish this knot is take your pair of pliers and grab this tag in your main line and pull it. And then we can trim this tag off. Doesn't have to be super close, but a pair of sharp pliers helps. They're cutters, because I don't like this mess hanging out here. So we're gonna trim that off. Okay, now let me show you guys what we got. A lot of people tie this knot, and there's a lot of different ways to tie it. But there's usually, what I see is a line on the outside of these wraps. That's not as strong as this line being under these wraps. So if you look at that, your tag end is being cinched down under those wraps. And that is the perfect Randall Tharp snell knot. So all we do now is we'll slide our weight back down. We'll slide our bobber stopper back down. And another thing that I see I want to talk about is this bobber stopper. There's different sizes. I see people put 2 of these up here sometimes. And I don't really like that. It makes it more efficient when you're fishing because this doesn't happen. You don't want your weight being up here. But the benefit of just having one is when I get that bite, I want this weight to get out of the way. I want this weight to be able to slide. That'll increase my hookup percentage on that fish. So I don't want the bait pinned here because when that fish is going crazy, it creates more leverage for him to throw the bait. So I recommend a single bobber stopper. That's what works the best for me. So picture this bait going through a mat. And you got an 8-pounder and it comes up and eats it. And he gets the whole thing. Like he comes up and his mouth's big and he eats this thing. And when you set the hook, you feel that bite and you set the hook. The first thing that's gonna hit that fish's mouth is, guess what? It's gonna be this weight. So what happens with this hook? It springs. See how that springs? That gives you a better chance of this hook point going through that fish's mouth. And that's what makes this setup, this snell knot, this hook was designed to be tied with that knot, and that's how the whole thing works. So we'll take our bait. I typically like about 1/4 inch of plastic in there. I don't like it a whole bunch, and I want it just enough to where it covers that entire hook point up. So there's a little bit of plastic right there between where the line comes out of the bait and the hook point. So it's a little cushion is what I'm saying between this weight and the bait. And then I'll take my bobber stopper and I'll slide it down so you can see there's just a little bitty gap right there. And I think that's about the perfect amount of play. I want that weight to move just a little bit, but I don't want a huge gap where it's gonna get hung up on anything. And then I come in my bait and I run my hook point all the way through, wallow out me a good hole, and then I kind of put it right back in the middle of the bait. And you can see that's hanging pretty straight. That's what you want. You don't want it all jacked up like one way or the other because it doesn't come through the cover effectively. So there it is. It's not that difficult to get it right. It's not that many pieces to the puzzle, but that's how I do it.